Okay, there we go. So, welcome aboard, everybody. My name is Doobyis. This is Fly in Formation. It's an interview series where I talk to the different artists from across Canada, guys whose music I play all the time on After the Smoke is Clear. Today, representing for Mississauga, talking to S. New album out with Shark. Welcome aboard, man. Good to have you.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, dude.
How's everything going?
You know, life is good. Life is good. I got no complaints at all. I'm glad you could join us. I've been looking forward to chopping it up a little bit about, you know, just the entire Mississauga scene. And, you know, I do my best to kind of learn as I go about the different scenes across Canada. I've never been to Mississauga, but I've talked to Run and Gun. They're from out there, you know, so I heard a little bit about the Mississauga scene at one point. But, you know, that's the fun part to do in these interviews is just chopping it up with different artists and kind of meeting the personalities that make up these scenes and keep the scenes growing and vibrant or whatever. So I guess do you want to just start maybe what's a fun way to introduce yourself? Do you want to describe your sound?
How do I describe my sound? So I describe it as grown man rap. That's the term I like to use. You know, inspired by you know, the legends of, so, you know, a lot of late 80s, early 90s influence to my sound. That's the era that I grew up in.
Real.
And you know, the lyricism, style of rhyme, you know, what the artist stood for. That's sort of, you know, the torch that I try to carry, and I carry it proudly. That's you know,
Nice.
what inspired me to be the artist that I am today. So I'd say in a nutshell, that's who I am.
Back to when there was a little bit more message in the music, I feel like then, eh? Or
Yeah,
typically. Yeah, for real.
Yeah.
So I guess let's just go straight to talking about the newest drop then. Like Reflections came out, I want to say almost a month ago now, right? Something like that.
Yeah, like 5 weeks, 6 weeks.
Yeah, right. Okay, so my calendar in my mind is working. Can you talk a little bit about kind of what you and Shark set out to do with that project? Like, you guys knew each other before that, right?
Yeah. So we've known each other since, I'd say, I met him for the first time back in the early 2000s. You know, at a local hip hop show. I believe it was in the Kitchener, Cambridge area. He was performing. This was, yeah, like I said, early 2000s is when I met him for the first time. I was familiar with him and you know, his presence in the scene at the time. And fast forward to probably, I'm gonna say, the early 2010s. Connected on social media. You know, it was sort of after a long, you know, gap between, you know, meetings. I think we sort of knew the same mutual friends, but we didn't necessarily run in the same circles, so we didn't necessarily connect, you know, on a frequent basis. But you know, I was aware of who he was. I did used to host a local hip hop show, University of Guelph, back in the day.
Hey,
And
fellow university DJs unite, man. Yeah, that's important shit there.
Yeah. So I was a host. I used to interview local artists. You know, a lot of mutual friends of ours that I had come through the studio, and we sort of connected more formally, probably mid 2010s at a local festival in Guelph. Is when we kind of got to talking a little bit more. I think around that time is when we you know, interacted a little bit more frequently. And you know, fast forward to 2022, I'm gonna say end of 2022, I believe we were both performing at an event, and we just kind of got to talking, and you know, kind of popped the idea of working on a project together. So yeah, we just kind of chipped away at it slowly but surely, and the rest is history.
Yeah, right on, man. So the new project, like the first track on it kind of starts off with like an interviewer. And I wondered, is that an actual interviewer that we should shout out or could shout out, or was that, it almost sounded like it was you pretending to be the interviewer as well.
It was me.
Okay.
Me with I just kind of lowered the treble, the pitch on my voice. But yeah, it was me.
Was the program that you mentioned actually your old show? That'd be dope.
No,
Oh,
no.
okay,
I just
okay.
made that up.
Came
I
up
just
with a
made
new
that up.
name.
Well, I literally freestyled the entire thing. So I had an idea of what I wanted to, what the verses were about, and I sort of tailored the questions and the dialogue accordingly.
Dope.
And yeah, I just that Southern Ontario hip hop news. I just made that up on the fly, and it
Okay,
just
yeah.
sort of worked.
I guessed it was made up at first, but then when you mentioned that, you'd also done a radio show back in the day, I thought, oh, maybe, okay. But anyways, so you kind of like cover in that song, you guys managed to wrap the answers to, some of the standard, like, how did you meet questions or whatever. So as you were saying there, that
Right.
you met each other backstage 2022, I was like, okay, yeah, this is what I heard in that song. Well, not really met each other, but more connected and had the idea for a collabo project together.
Right.
But I wanted to kind of try to ask something that wasn't such a standard interviewer question and play off of the Reflections title and ask you, like, when you look at Shark, what are some qualities that he has that you would see in yourself as well? Like,
He's a thinker. I
yeah,
mean, a very introspective artist when it comes to like subject matter, the way that he conveys his ideas over the music. And it's one of the things that I really respect about him, and a really huge fan of his style of writing.
yeah,
And he actually came up with the album title Reflections, and this was pretty early on, probably a couple of tracks in. He had come up with the title, and I decided at least at that point that every verse or every concept that we touched on, I was going to kind of bring it back to reflection, that the term reflections, and I think we were able to do a pretty good job, executing that. And yeah, we wanted to be, introspective, looking back, reflecting, and really playing on the album title, on the theme of the album,
yeah.
to
Nice,
really
man.
bring it all together.
Yeah,
Yeah.
lots of clever bars, and I was really impressed with just how many concepts you guys did bring. Like each track had, well, maybe not necessarily each and every track, but a lot of the tracks have a very conceptual feel to them, where
Right.
you guys have definitely chosen a theme and are sticking to it, which isn't something that you get a ton, especially I think with like group projects, because it gets a little bit more complicated to get people to meet in the middle on what you're both rapping about, right? Like I've talked to different groups
Right.
before and heard, like one guy I remember telling me, he's in a group out on the West Coast, and he was saying that it's tough to bring more personal subject matter to a group project because you don't want to be telling your homie to jump on the track that you just rapped to 16 about, the relationship that just fell apart. There's some real personal thing in your life, right? But how did you guys approach kind of like putting together concepts that would work, that you guys would both be able to kind of add perspective to?
Well, I mean, I think the one thing that really helped us is that we're both kind of at the same stage in life. We're roughly around the same age, give or take a few months, and we have the same, pretty much same type of life experience. Both family men, raising kids, a household, juggling this thing that we both enjoy doing. So that was half the battle right there. We're kind of along, on the same page in terms of that. And then, like I mentioned before, just the style of rhyming. He's an introspective rhymer. I like to do the same thing.
Yeah,
All my projects are, for the most part, are conceptual albums. So it comes easy to me. I prefer that kind of writing anyway,
yeah,
to have a theme and just stick to the theme all the way through. So I think it was just made in heaven. Just us two connecting on a project like this. Also being fans of each other's work, I think that helps as well.
yeah, for sure.
And we're
So
both fans of the same type of beats, type of, yeah.
have you worked in a group before this, or like I know you've got a lot of solo albums under the belt?
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I've done the group thing a few times actually.
Okay. Word. So I wanted to
Um,
ask though, like,
sure.
sorry, without getting into to too much history there. I mean, if you want to, you could tell me about the group that you used to be in or whatever. Yeah, I'd love to hear about it, man. What's the history like?
Yeah, so actually, the first group that I was a part of was a group called Homegrown.
Okay.
Um, so myself, there's a couple other artists from in and around the GTA. This was back in 2010, 2011. We did we're a four-man group. Um, Put out an album and a mixtape, and then my family group called they go by the name Gil Breathing. So that's myself, mathematics, Solar C, and the Eloquent. We've done a lot of group stuff together here and there throughout the years.
Right.
And Sons of Boom Bap. So that's
Of
another
course. Yeah.
collective that I've done work with. So it's
Yeah.
just it's about kind of tailoring or maneuvering through different personalities. People with different personalities, different stages of life, and trying to find a common ground and making something work.
For real. I wanted to ask, like, because Shark is definitely a prolific solo artist as well. And you've done a lot of solo work in the past as well. And I wanted to ask, like, kind of the change up in approach to working on a more collaborative project like this, compared to when you're coming at something solo. Like, if you were just sitting down to write songs by yourself, would you have covered different topics, or would you be coming with different concepts than we ended up with on this album?
I don't think too much of a deviation. No, like the concepts that I rapped about on this album. I mean, I've touched on them to some extent before.
Yeah.
I think the only thing is just the style of beats that we decided to choose, and just the way that we approached the songs, bouncing off each other, ideas off each other. It's a little bit easier actually working with someone that's sort of on the same page, as opposed to coming up with concepts from scratch and trying to figure out how you're going to execute them. You have that that person to lean on and bounce ideas off of and shoot verses back and forth and kind of piggyback off someone else's energy. So it actually worked out easier
Right.
this time around.
So with you in Mississauga and Shark out in London, I believe, right? That's where he's based. Yeah. So
London, yeah.
I don't know what the commute is, but I assume a little bit of a commute between the two places, right?
Yeah, about maybe hour and a half.
Oh,
Hour and
okay.
20.
So close enough that you could link up. Did you guys end up linking up for sessions, or was it a lot of file sending back and forth and home recording on both ends?
Home recording on both ends and file swapping. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah. Okay. So, how do you feel that works with the collaborative process? Like, is it, I feel like in a lot of ways that makes it more convenient, right? To be able to do things kind of on your own timeline, put your verse down, record it at your leisure when it's time to. But then there's probably also drawbacks as far as maybe not getting the instant feedback from somebody who could be sitting in the same room with you or whatever.
Yeah, you know what? It wasn't nearly that bad. I mean, I mean his turnaround time for I mean he's an animal. He's a machine when it comes to turning stuff around, and I found it just worked out. We were on the same page creatively, and once one of us came up with a verse or a hook and sent it, within a day or two, the verse was sent back, and we already had a sort of a skeleton for a song.
Nice.
And adding the little touches and polishings, didn't take a whole lot of effort. So we were already on the same page as soon as a file was sent. We already kind of knew what to do with it and where we wanted to go with it, and we
Beautiful. Yeah.
just bounced around ideas on how we were going to execute it, and
So
it worked out.
as far as like the actual beat selection process, did you guys kind of both end up choosing a handful of beats and laying a verse on it yourself and then sending the beat with a verse on it over to the other guy? Or were you choosing a
Well,
beat and
actually,
saying, let's both write to this and start from scratch kind of thing?
Yeah, so we started with the beats first. So what we did was we had we both have a lot of mutual friends and connection of solid networks in our own rights to get beats. And we pretty much put an open call out there on social media. Anybody, S and Shark and us, we're working on this project. Anybody who wants to be a part of it, just hit us up, send
Well,
us what
just
you
in the
got.
Sons of Boom Bap group alone, there's a pretty wide range of
Yeah,
producers and
yeah.
whatever who are, yeah, looking to work.
Yeah, and we had
Yeah.
a handful of people already, pretty close to in-house to work with, and then we had a few other people from outside that we hadn't necessarily worked with before that, were willing to pitch in, and within a very short time, we had huge folders and upon folders of beats to pick from. We had maybe 50, if not more,
Yeah.
to pick from, and we both listened, came up with our own, top 10 list or top 5 list of from a bunch of different producers, and we came to an agreement on which 15 or so that we wanted to tackle. And once we agreed on those 15, we just kind of chipped away one at a time.
Nice, man.
One
Yeah.
person took one beat, I took another, maybe wrote a verse, maybe wrote a hook, and then swapped, and then on to the next song, same, and then repeat cycle.
When you were working on this project, were you like, I almost feel like, when you get solo MCs together on a project, a lot of the time it's kind of treated like a side project. Like, they're writing verses for that over there. They're writing verses for this other project over here. You might have your own solo coming or whatever. Like, were you working exclusively on that, or are you also putting together something aside from it?
Nah, juggling,
Yeah,
doing the juggles. Same with him. I mean,
for real.
he's juggling at the time probably 2, 3, 4 projects, and same on this side. So
Yeah, Shark, I think
we just
dropped like 3 or 4 this year, didn't he? Like,
oh yeah, and
yeah,
he has another one that's dropping in a couple of weeks. So he's a beast.
yeah,
He's a beast.
for real. So, before Reflections was your last album. Oh damn, 2023, Driver or Driven. Yeah, that's the one, right? Yeah. Sorry, I was slipping my mind there. Yeah, okay. And then should we look for more solo work coming out down the line then? What do you got cooking?
Yeah, I've got a few projects actually on the go that I'm sort of bouncing back and forth between. So be on the lookout for them.
For real.
I'm not gonna spill the beans on those just yet, but yeah, once I have more material put together and I'm a little closer to the finish line, then for sure I'll
Beautiful,
make sure
man.
everybody knows about it.
Yeah, that's totally fair. You're very reliable. I thank you a lot for sending music over to me. And sending over exclusives even before it drops or whatever. I got a chance to listen to this Reflections album before the rest of the world did, so I felt privileged for that, man. I appreciate it. I wanted to ask, so throughout the years, man, like, have the motivations for making hip hop changed for you, or pretty consistent over the years? Because you've done a lot of music,
I've done, yeah. I mean, I love this. I don't think I'm at the point, if ever, that I'll stop doing this. I just enjoy it. I enjoy the creative process. I enjoy sharing my thoughts with folks that care about what I have to say, and those are the folks that keep me motivated, as well as peers out there that I respect, that keep me inspired to keep doing what I do.
For real, man.
So yeah, I'm gonna keep. I'm a lifer. I'm a lifer to this.
I love to hear it, man. There's talk about how hip hop is a young man's game or this and that, and I totally don't believe it. I think a lot of artists make their best music, later into life, especially independent artists. Like a lot of the, big famous people did their best works early in their life, maybe. But I think a lot of artists take a while and just continue building up all through life, making better and better music or whatever. Would you say you're making better music now than you were I don't know, 10, 15 years ago. Like,
Yeah, absolutely,
yeah,
absolutely. Me personally, I believe I'm getting better. In terms of the subject matter, more to talk about.
yeah,
I've got life experience to back me, and yeah, I think it's just with age comes, the wisdom and understanding of life and purpose, and I try to infuse that into the music that I put out there, and I think for the most part, at least the feedback that I've gotten from folks that follow, what I've been doing is that, I speak for them as well.
for real, man.
So
Yeah,
which is an awesome piece of feedback.
yeah, definitely. You've got a track called Growth on Reflections where you're talking about kind of the growth and the constant push forward and to keep evolving. And I know that in the song you guys are talking more about personal growth and, changing values and changing perspective on the world and things like that, more so than musical growth. But I wanted to kind of just hone in on the music element, like, and now you've said, you have continued to evolve and you think you're making better music. Are there any specific areas you can point to be like, I've gotten better at, I don't know, using vocabulary, or like better at expressing a context, or expressing a concept, I mean to say. Are there any specific areas that you'd point to and say, like, I'm doing this better now these days?
I think my bodies of work are more cohesive. I'd say. I think I take that being probably my biggest takeaway. I've always been inspired by the likes of like the master aces of the world for
Yeah,
their ability to put together cohesive, really methodical approach to putting together albums. And I think I find that process now versus say 10 years ago, it's a lot easier for me to do that. And I figured out how to do it. And I've been able to execute that a few times in a row. And the feedback that I've gotten from folks is that yeah, I figured out how to put together albums, and I sequence them together, the beat selection, the themes. I stick to the topic. I don't stray from the theme. So I take that as a compliment. I think I figured out the ability to do that and do it consistently. And I think that's one thing that I say now I do a lot better than say 10 years ago.
nice, man. Yeah, good answer.
Mm.
Dude, I was wondering, like, with the multiple producers that you guys included on this album, I feel like sometimes having different producers included on an album can lead to less cohesion. Do you feel like it's easier to have that kind of cohesive feel to an entire album if you're working with one producer? Have you done an album specifically with one producer like that? Like, it's kind of a trend right now. You're getting one MC, one producer on a lot of different albums, right? When you mentioned Master
Yeah,
Ace, that
so
was what made me think of that, actually. His
yeah,
last one was, I think, with Marco Polo, if I can remember
Marco
correctly.
Polo, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, actually, the last few I've done
Yeah.
have been just one producer.
Nice.
So, I mean, I kind of broke that streak with this one, but I mean, the Driver Driven was one producer. You Want a Piece of Me from 2022 was one producer. Um, the EP I did in 2020 with DJ Pandemonium, that was one producer. So I mean, I've done both. I've been able to work with one producer, work with multiple producers, and still make an album sound, cohesive. So I think it comes back to just the ability to ear for beats. I think
Yeah.
I know which beats work for me and which beats suit the subject matter that I'm speaking to, and I figured out how to do it, how to make it work.
Nice, man. Yeah.
So yeah.
Dude, earlier in this year, you had a kind of a contest going on your Instagram for your Tribute to Tribe song, where it was, I think it was an open
Right.
verse challenge for MCs as well as a remix contest, or am I
No, it was
misremembering
just a
that?
remix, just a remix contest.
Okay, just the remix contest.
So
So, but
just
you had a ton of different artists who sent in remixes for you, man. So you must have no shortage of producers who are, down to work or whatever. I wanted to ask about
yeah,
that process though, running a remix contest. Like, did you feel like that was a significant kind of boost to I don't know, visibility for the song or whatever marketing thing we're supposed to talk about? Like,
Yeah, absolutely. I had actually gotten the idea. I'd seen some other artists do similar, and I'd seen a lot of really good engagement as a result. And from some of the you know tutorials and YouTube videos that I've watched over the years, as far as how to you know expand your audience and get engagement, improve your engagement. Doing these types of activities helps with that.
yeah,
So I decided to just take a shot. I'd never done one of those before, and I think for a first one it went pretty well. I had 44 different producers
yeah,
participate, and their respective audiences chimed in on this contest, and I think I was able to share my audience or introduce my audience to some of these folks, and vice versa.
yeah,
So I think it was a really good give and take, and I was able to build a lot of really good relationships as a result. So
beautiful.
it's probably one of those check marks that I definitely have in my arsenal. That for sure, this is something that I do again at an opportune time to redo it again. But yeah, it was a really good experience, and I think the feedback was really positive as far as the folks that were sort of on the sidelines, watching it all unfold.
Me.
People seem to
Yeah, yeah,
enjoy it, and some people got put on to artists that they wouldn't have otherwise, been able to interact with or even hear about. So
did you
I
end
think it
up
was good.
like linking with any? Sorry, did you end up linking with any of the producers for like, are they producing on this Reflections album, or um, have you
There
actually
are a
linked up
few.
for more work down the line with any of these guys?
Yes, yes, yes.
Beautiful. Yeah.
So yeah, yeah. So we definitely built relationships with some of these folks, and there's some work that's being done in the background with some of these folks, and even potentially a future project with a number of them. So
Sure.
yeah,
Keep our ear to the street.
yeah.
Dude, this is a general question. I just like asking different artists, but what does success look like for you as an artist?
Success for me would be just growing my audience as big as I can with within the my means and capabilities. Having as many people hear what I had to say, and hopefully have it resonate with more people. More is very subjective. What
Yeah.
what does more mean? But my goal is to grow the audience 2 years at a time, and have more people that know who I am. Next release versus the previous release. So just keep growing, and keep expanding. The folks that give their time to listen to what I have to say.
For real, man. Yeah,
That's
yours is the type of music that will definitely connect with select listeners who will really connect with it, right? Like,
yeah,
you make music that's good enough that the true heads are going to hear it, and they're going to gravitate towards, oh, okay, this is somebody I should be paying attention to. I feel like a lot of people are just pumping out a lot of content where it's a little bit more watered down or whatever, but the quality shines through, and that's what really I think draws people to actually follow, to become an actual community and support network for artists. So yeah, I think you're you're doing a good job of that, and continuing to do things like this or whatever, just put out more music. That's how you're going to continue to grow or whatever. um
yeah.
Dude, I like to ask people a little bit about the actual process of the making of the music. Are you the type of MC who's writing an entire song in one sitting, or you chipping away at it throughout the course of a day, a week, however long in your phone, kind of thing? Or what does the writing process actually look like for you?
You know what? It depends on the mood that I'm in. It depends on the vibe of the beat. It depends on what's going on in my personal life. So I mean, I've had a bit of both. I've had instances where I've chipped away a couple bars here, a few bars there, and it's taken me a week to come up with something that I'm happy with.
Right.
And then there's other times where in one sitting I can come up with something from start to finish. It all depends on the vibe and what's happening, what's going on in my personal life.
Yeah,
If
for
I've got quiet time to, get away from daddy life, or if I had the house to myself, I might just kind of get myself tucked away in this little room that I have here, and I can create something. But yeah, it all depends. It all depends.
yeah. How about recording wise? Do you enjoy home recording yourself, or let me ask it this way: if money was out of the question, if everything was free, or you just had infinite amounts of money, would you be paying somebody to record you someplace else, or do you enjoy the home recording process?
You know what? Both. So I'll answer both. So I mean, I enjoy the home recordings just because of the flexibility. I can just kind of do it at will, and not have to worry about it. And then on the flip side, pre pandemic, I was recording elsewhere,
Right.
and you just show up, rap, and then someone else will take care of piecing everything together.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit more work now, but it's not a huge undertaking. I do what I'm capable of doing, and whatever is outside of my realm of capabilities, I outsource.
I was just
So
going to ask about like mixing and mastering and stuff like that. Who ended up
yeah,
doing those duties for this new project?
actually, Shark did everything.
Okay,
So
nice.
kudos to him.
Yeah, jack of all
He had the
trades.
patience. He had the patience for it. But I mean, I tried to do that before, and I have. It's I'm just not proficient enough that I can do it in a a quick turnaround. It takes me a lot longer to do something from start to finish, but I have done it before.
For real. What's your relationship? I mean, you're part of Sons of Boom Bap, but were you like one of the founding fathers of Sons of Boom Bap? Like, was that your baby? Like, it's Shark's
Shark,
baby, or
the Sharks baby. I
okay,
was one of the original members. I'm trying to remember when we started it. I think it was 2016, maybe.
okay,
Yeah, right around 2016 or so, thereabouts. 2017 maybe is when Shark had formed that collective. We did put out a project back then, and then there was a little bit of a hiatus, and within the last say 2 years or so, we sort of re brought it back and was trying to reinvigorate it, get it going again. And yeah, we just dropped the project a few months back.
yes, sir.
So
Yeah,
yeah, just trying to keep it going, keep the movement going, and stay creative with the plethora of talent that we have within that collective.
for real. Yeah, there's so much talent around there, man. I was really impressed with that album. Happy to be on a couple of tracks on there. Managed to just squeak in at the deadline for the one song or whatever on that Golden Cup song. I think jumped on there last
Uh,
night of the deadline. But yeah, man,
nice.
it was a really good project. I kudos to Shark for putting all that together. Yeah, I'm excited to see what comes next, I guess, from that entire collective, because there's hundreds of guys in there. There should be no shortage of potential, right? So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let's see. This one I get kind of answered on both sides. It's always interesting. Do you get more fulfillment from making the music in studio or from performing the music on stage?
Um, I enjoy both.
Yeah,
I think the live elements is you can't beat that. It's just the natural high of being on stage and interacting with an audience in person. So I enjoy the creative aspect of it, but yeah, actually sharing it in person live is
that's
just
the
one of
real.
those things that
Yeah, that's the
yeah,
real feeling to
yeah.
chase, right? Yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, and that's the true test of whether it translates. The audio in the studio translates, uh, you know, to the audience. If people are actually resonating with it and vibing to it, that's the true barometer of whether your audio is more than just audio. It's actually it's a product that people can actually consume, and you can actually see the reaction to it in real time.
Let me stumble through asking a question that just popped into my mind. But you're talking about how you make grown man music, and I would say you do. I think that that's a good description of your music. Um, but I also know, as I myself age and as the people around me all age, like we go out to party less often, right? Like we aren't
Right.
necessarily out as late drinking and partying and having that
Right.
show atmosphere, right? So do you think that there's, but like on the other hand, hip hop has came from parties, right? It came from that
Right.
atmosphere. So I don't know. Do you think that there's a lane for kind of like hip hop that isn't necessarily made for that live experience? Maybe,
Yeah, absolutely.
you know?
Um, I mean, there's something for everybody. I
Yeah,
mean, that's the common phrase. I mean, there's a market for everything. So some artists are content with just creating, and that's nothing to take away from them. I think some artists also enjoy, being out there in person, sharing their art with a live audience. So
for real, man. Yeah.
yeah,
Well, and the rush is undeniable, like you said. It's
yeah,
fun and
yeah,
people love live music. So, there's
yeah.
definitely that. But I was just thinking like for, people aging with hip hop and uh making grown man
Yeah,
music, it's some of it's got to
I
just
mean,
be about grown man shit that
I'm
isn't
not.
necessarily at the club, you know what I mean, or out at the show, right? Like
Yeah, yeah, and I'm not gonna lie. I mean, it is tougher to get folks our age out.
yeah,
I mean, we have families, we got jobs, and yeah, maybe the desire to go out isn't the same as it was, say, 15, 20 years ago. But there are people that, like myself, that
still
still
do.
enjoy going out.
Yeah,
So I
definitely.
still go out. A lot of the times, I might be one of the older people in the audience, and I'm okay with that. I enjoy going out and enjoying, live hip hop music, and especially if it's age appropriate, I'm there.
For real. Well, and I would imagine that at this point you've probably built up a following who, is still happy to come out and see your show because they know what they're getting into and they know it's, not going to be something they don't want to be at or whatever, right? Like, just the community that builds around artists is always strong, and for artists who have longevity, it yeah tends to help bring people out for their next show or whatever. Let me go back to the scripted questions here now that I've finished rambling. Oh, I wanted to ask you, what is the HG Monster on your Instagram handle? Where did that come from? What does HG Monster stand
So
for, or is it a reference to a crew, or what? Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So the first rap group that I was a part of that I talked about earlier, Homegrown.
Oh,
So
that checks
we
out. Yeah.
we so our for short we called ourselves HG, and I was S. So HG Monster S
Nice.
was the handle I decided when I started using social media, or
Right.
Twitter actually. So I just decided to use that across all platforms at that point.
Um, can I ask you, dude? Do you listen to local music? Do you listen to a bunch of like actual kind of local level hip hop, or what type of hip hop do you tend to listen to? What are you listening to on the regular?
The most of my catalog, or most of my collection, is actually local artists.
Nice.
Um, I actually, to be honest, I enjoy supporting the local, lesser known artists than the big name artists that everybody knows about, because I can relate to, the lesser name artists more than the big name artists. The big name artists is for the most part already made it, and they have a huge following, and they don't necessarily need my support.
Right.
But folks at, say, my level, we deserve, or we need all the support we can get.
For
So
real.
I find myself, bumping, a lot of my peers, and I support their releases on Bandcamp. That's one of the things that I take pride in is I love supporting independent artists. So
I
physical copies, digital copies off Bandcamp.
I agree
Yeah.
100%, man. Yeah, that's what it's about.
Yeah.
To me, like, I know that it's not really something anybody strives to do these days is like find the new undiscovered artists and show it to their friends. But before the internet, that's what it was, right? Like it was,
Yeah.
you'd only hear new artists if somebody's older brother was like, yo, listen to this new CD that I got or new album I got or whatever, right? Like, and so like showing people new artists was always something that I loved doing. And so, yeah, as soon as I got offered the slot on CKXU here, college radio in Lethbridge, like it's like, wow, I know too many rappers making too much music not to. So now it's evolved to be, pretty much the full hour every week is all new release hip hop from across Canada, different artists or whatever.
Yeah.
And yeah, I agree 100%. These people need support. And uh, if anything, it seems kind of lame to me that people only want to support people who are co-signed by billionaires. Like people really want to be spoon-fed and
Yeah.
told what to listen to like that. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And that's why I'm a huge fan of. Always been a huge fan of college radio,
yeah,
because I mean they're the ones that break the artists before the public knows about them. And from back when I was a student in university, listening to college radio, getting put on the artists, this is where I go to. Now with the internet, there are a lot more podcasts
yeah,
that do similar things, but essentially it's the same principle. They're the ones that break these artists that the masses have never heard of,
right.
and that's usually where I go to find out who's dope.
Yeah,
And I
that's a
don't
good
need
place to go to. I think like the blog
yeah,
era kind of started that or whatever, and now it's all turned to video content, so podcasts and stuff like this or
yeah,
whatever. But
yeah,
yeah, a lot of people just are tapped in with the playlists, and they're only hearing the people with enough money to pay their way onto those playlists or whatever, or the drive to pay their way onto those big playlists, and yeah, it
right,
gets kind of watered down. But I'm glad to see the underground still strong and putting albums out, man. Um,
absolutely.
so, dude, there's a segment of this show called "How Important Is." I'm just gonna ask how important is this or that. You can answer long-winded, short-winded, any way you like. It's just a conversation starter, basically. But how important is getting grants for a Canadian artist?
Oh, it's huge.
Yeah,
It's huge. I think anybody that's fortunate enough to secure a grant, hey, that's 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 it's a game changer. I mean, anybody that can secure a grant to fund a project, or whatever it is, whether it's marketing, whether it's pressing physical
touring, yeah,
product,
any of it, yeah,
touring, that's sort of a godsend. Not I don't think all jurisdictions have that luxury. And I talk to artists from different parts of the world, and I don't get the sense that things like that are available
I
everywhere.
I
So
agree. Statistically, I know for a fact Canada gives more money to artists than any other country in the world. Through their grant programs. So, yeah, we are
yeah,
definitely fortunate to be, making music in this country, in that aspect. Anyways, of course, there's all the other drawbacks like 6 hour drives between cities or whatever to try to do it too. But, how about this one? How important is having a hype man on stage with you when you perform? And this takes on a bit of a different context because I mean, I wouldn't call Shark your hype man, but do you enjoy having somebody on stage with you who probably knows your bars well enough to kind of do some background vocals or whatever?
doesn't hurt.
Yeah,
I mean, me personally, for solo work, I've never needed it.
yeah,
I've figured out a way to connect with the audience without the need for a hype man. But for collaborative projects like one Shark and I did, we sort of bounce off each other, and yeah, it works out great. So I think both in our own rights, we're established, more than capable solo artists on stage, and in the booth, and we know how to put on shows. So
real.
connecting, sort of muscle memory. We know how to back each other up, and bring out the best in each other. So I
I
think it
actually
works out.
I'd agree for sure. I actually wanted to touch on the release show that you guys did for Reflections, because I know it was to help raise funds for I believe Dano Bravo, was that the producer's name? Yeah, whose house burnt down, and so yeah, you guys were raising a little bit of money. How did the show go?
It was a good show. It's a good show. I mean, the folks that did turn out, they had a good time. The talent that was on the bill was great. Everybody seemed to be enjoying the vibe, and I think it's one of those shows where there were no weak there was no weak acts. Everybody came with it. Everybody's brought quality, and
That's what we need, man.
solid.
More rap shows that don't
Yeah,
have 8 openers nobody wants to see on there or whatever. Right?
yeah.
Yeah.
Everybody was there. Everybody was hand selected, and everybody was there. It was a purposeful show. So for anybody that may have come in not knowing anybody on that bill, they definitely left, becoming fans of at least a handful of artists on that bill. And those are the types of shows that I like to go to or like to be a part of.
Yeah, definitely. So back to these how important questions, a few more of them. How important is rehearsal before shows? Especially in, this with Shark, did you guys get a chance to actually kind of meet up and run through a show, or is it at a point where you're both
Yeah.
polished enough you can kind of just know your own bars and do it?
Well, it's funny you mentioned that. So I literally a week prior to that show, we had a show in Guelph. So the Guelph show the week prior was our first time performing together uh, in person. And yeah, I mean, for the most part, like you said, we're both you know uh, competent in our own rights to put on shows, but just kind of working out the slight the intricacies and tightening up a couple of things. We got that straightened out at our, I guess, our trial run show, for lack of a better term, and come our release show, yeah, everything was ran a lot smoother.
So the trial run was the first time you guys had ever actually performed together?
Correct.
Okay. Had you collaborated, like, before this album? Had you ever done a song together even?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Bunch
Okay.
of times.
Yeah,
Bunch of
okay.
times.
But
Yeah.
never performed them together. Okay.
But never performed live together. Yeah.
Cool. Um, how important is album art? Does that matter in
It's
2024?
very.
No.
Uh, See, you changed my answer by throwing 2024 in there.
That's the thing, is all these questions are kind of nebulous. It's like, I don't know. What, does it matter? Does it not? Yeah.
If you would have asked me that question 10 years ago, I would have said absolutely.
Yeah.
And the reason I say that is my very first album, the album art was trash. Like I can be mature enough now in my more mature state to look back on that and say that, man, that album was trash in terms of the artwork. I think back then my thought process was that the music should be good enough to stand on its own,
Right.
and
Shouldn't matter what the cover looks like.
yeah, it shouldn't matter what the art looks like, and I didn't make it. I didn't make it a point to go the extra mile to whether it's contract out that task to somebody more capable, or be willing to spend the money to have someone else do it. I thought I could do it myself,
Right.
and it was piss poor. I can admit
Hindsight's
that.
always 2020, especially when we're looking back at our own art, right?
Yeah, but I mean, I did have someone update the artwork maybe probably a year or two after the album had come out, and it's much better now than it was than the very original version.
Smart.
But I didn't change. So for the physical CD, the artwork is different. But for the digital, if you go on my Bandcamp, you'll see the original artwork. It looks terrible, and I didn't change it on purpose. It's as a reminder to myself that
True to the roots.
Don't ever do that.
That's where it started. Yeah.
But nowadays, like, now that you bring up the question, some of the art that I've seen in the last couple of years, some of it's, I mean, impeccable, and then some of it is like,
Yeah.
wow, maybe maybe it's not as important. So,
Wide range
but it
for
depends on
sure.
who the artist is. I guess if you have a big enough name and you've established yourself, you can maybe take those liberties to not care. But for an emerging artist or somebody that's unknown, I think first impressions are everything. So
Yeah,
you gotta come correct with the artwork.
for real. Um, how about how important is sound check before a show? Show up for sound check?
Yes, I try to. I try to. I make it a point to at least, at the very least, if they don't actually have an official sound check, at least to get there early to kind of get a feel for the room,
Yeah.
get a feel for what the audio sounds like,
Meet the
so
sound
you
man
can,
maybe or whatever. Yeah.
yeah, meet the sound man and make arrangements, make a deal, maybe slip a 20 in his pocket to make sure that he gets your sound right. But
Right.
yeah, very important. The last thing you need is doing sound check during your performance, and that's just it's just not a good experience for the audience. So,
Is that real? I've never actually heard anybody tell me that to tip the sound man beforehand, but it sounds
no,
like
no,
that'd
I just
probably work. But
is this a joke? Is this a joke?
oh, okay. I thought you were, dropping some real knowledge on us there from past. Okay.
No, 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 no.
Um, about how important is it to be friends with the people you're making music with?
It helps. I
Yeah.
mean, I think it helps with the chemistry for sure.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know why anybody would want to work on music with somebody that they didn't like.
Well, I mean,
That's
not
weird.
necessarily somebody they didn't like, but like, I think especially with the internet era, I could reach out to a producer I've never met in Toronto, buy a beat off of him,
Oh, okay, okay,
work with
okay.
him. We're not enemies, but we're not
Yeah.
really friends, like,
Okay, okay.
yeah,
So acquaintances. I mean, at the very least, you should kind of have some idea of what your collaborator sounds like
right.
or what kind of vibe they bring. Like blind date collabs.
Yeah,
Those
no,
those
I can't imagine that happening, but yeah, yeah.
those could end up disastrous. So I
Unless
don't
maybe
know.
it's
I
like a
wouldn't
cipher
recommend that.
somebody puts together or something, I guess, maybe just,
Yeah,
yeah,
that's the only exception. But as far as like songs,
yeah.
if you've never heard or what that person has to bring to collaborate with somebody you've never heard of, I don't know.
As far as
It's a risk.
longevity of an actual group, it's got to be pretty important too, right? Like a lot of hip hop groups don't last because people's egos clash or whatever and the friendships fall apart. I mean, yeah, you made a song about Tribe. I don't have to tell you this, but yeah, I think it can help keep a group together, though, right? If people are actual, friends outside of the music too, right?
Yeah, I think it definitely helps. I mean, at the very least, if there's creative differences, you still can respect and you can still respect one another. When all is said and done. But
Real,
yeah, I
yeah.
think friendship or at least camaraderie helps. At least helps with the chemistry, in my opinion.
Yeah. So this next one, I noticed on your bio, you've got it written up that you're from Mississauga. You rep Mississauga. I feel like a lot of people in the GTA, whether they're from Mississauga or London or I don't know, Niagara Falls or Sudbury, they just tend to say they're from Toronto when it comes time to market their music or whatever. I wanted to ask you, like, how important is an artist's physical location? Does it matter where you're from at this point?
Not really. I think it's more of an association thing because there's certain cities that are sort of world renowned.
Yeah.
So somebody from outside of Canada or North America, you ask them, do you know where Mississauga is? And they'll be like, where?
Yeah.
And you say Toronto. Oh yeah, yeah, I know Toronto. It's just name recognition. I think
Right.
that's more so why people would do it. Not that they're disowning where they're from. It's just proximity to the nearest big major city. I would that'd be my assumption. I mean,
Yeah.
that's why I do it. I can speak for myself. That's why I do it. So
As far as even Toronto though is still like a tough place to make it out of as a hip hop artist. Have you ever, uh, kicked around the idea of like moving to the States, trying to find a bigger market, you know, in America or something like that?
no,
Yeah.
No, I'm a proud Canuck.
Right on, man. Yeah, right on. I just, yeah, I think a lot of artists feel like, oh, I'm from here, I'll never blow up. I gotta move to, X location before I even have a shot at it or whatever. Um, and I don't know if
I guess
that's necessarily the case.
with the with the internet,
Yeah,
I think that's changed all of that. I mean, there are artists up here that are, they're proud of where they're at, and they're still gaining that international recognition
for
right
real.
here at home. So, I mean, there's numerous examples of that, across the country. So
Definitely. Yeah.
I don't think you need to move. I mean, the days of moving to New York to, get
Chase
your
the dream.
start or your big
Yeah,
break or chase your dream. I mean, those days are long gone. So
for real.
yeah.
Yeah. I think that kind of ties back to what we were saying about like actually maybe we're even luckier than I've actually realized before for being Canadian artists because we get grants and now the internet has kind of leveled that playing field, so it doesn't even matter if we're surrounded by millions and millions of people in a market like that as much anyways, right? I mean, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So last one of these. How important is it to stay physically fit and healthy for an artist?
I think it's very important, especially if that artist performs live. Breath control is important,
Yeah.
especially in the live setting. It helps with, enunciation, clarity, all the aspects that make the live show experience for the audience a good one. So being able to clearly be heard, being able to say your verses, whether you're bouncing around, dancing, jumping,
Yeah.
you want to be in shape. You don't need to be an Olympian, but at least you need to be able to, keep your breath and not run out of breath when you're on stage. And yeah,
Yeah. Big pun gets
give
brought
a
up a
good
lot
time.
when I ask people that question. They, tend to be like, there's some guys that managed it, but probably a show would have been better if he wasn't riding a moped out or whatever. Even if you're that dope lyrically, you probably still want to keep it in check.
But I don't think he could have rocked the show live by himself, and I don't think he did. I think he always had a hype man
Yeah.
because
Well, Joe,
I
right?
don't think
Yeah.
he could keep his breath. Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I wouldn't be surprised, man. So, okay, I appreciate your time, man. We've just hit the hour mark. Before I let people go at the end of these things, I always ask a couple just wrap questions. Can you describe your local scene?
Local scene, I'd say it's one that is growing, and by that I mean there are a lot more events happening, a lot more promoters, throwing shows, a lot more venues that are hosting hip hop events than years prior.
That's good to hear.
So
Yeah,
yeah, it's one of those scenes that are on the rise, and I've been fortunate enough to participate in a few of some of the events that have been thrown over the last little while. And yeah, I mean, there's talent here. It's there's uh, a tendency to believe that the only scene that exists, at least in this neck of the woods, is in the Toronto area. And yeah, for the most part, it's true. It is the big city, but
right.
there is a scene out here as well in Mississauga. It's just half hour away. But yeah, like I said, there is a scene out here, and there are people doing things and making moves out here. So
What would
yeah,
the
it's good to see.
population in Mississauga be?
Oh,
Ballpark.
I think it's what is the number? It's probably around.
Like it's not a small city, right? You're still
No,
got to be
no,
coming up on a
it's a
million or so, I would
little
guess.
million. It's a little under a million, if I'm
Yeah.
not mistaken. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's still almost the size of the major cities out here on the prairies or whatever. So, yeah, even an hour outside of Toronto, you're still in a fairly, plenty of people around to come out to the show or whatever.
Yeah.
How about some artists from Mississauga who people should be up on? You give some shout outs. That's name of the show is just trying to spread as much new music to as many new ears as possible. So anybody you can shout
Yeah,
out.
yeah. My boy Lendor. He's an artist that I met a few years ago, and that I've had a good relationship with and worked on music a bunch of times over the years. So Lendor, Jay Omer's is another dope artist. Run and Gun,
Yeah.
they're a dope collective out of here. And there's a bunch of other dope artists out here doing things. Testament is another dope MC. Um, I mean, there's a bunch of others that I'm just
That's all good, man. Even if you just want to shout out collaborators or other people who aren't necessarily from Mississauga, there, Testament is a name I don't recognize, so that's just new for me. I'll check him out.
I want to shout out 40 Ounce Heroes. 40 Ounce Heroes. They're a collective promoters. Show promoters. I think they do what's the word I'm looking for? They do promo work for and they put on for Mississauga.
Okay.
So
Nice,
shout out to my boy.
They got a dope name. I like that name. 40 Ounce Heroes. That's cool.
40 Ounce Heroes, yeah.
All right. Any plans for shows or tours or anything else that you want people to know about coming up?
Stay tuned is all I can say for now. Nothing on the books just yet, but stay tuned. Anything can happen. And,
fair enough.
Things typically change in the indie scene like that. So
follow up to that question is, where should people pay most attention on social media to keep up with you?
Yeah, you can follow me on all platforms at HG Monster ES on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, TikTok. You'll be able to find links to all my stuff and my posts,
Perfect.
Fairly regularly. So you'll be able to be updated on what I got going on.
Right on, man. Well, thanks a lot. I really enjoyed the new album. I appreciate you stopping through to talk about it, and it was a pleasure to meet you, man.
Yes, sir. Thank you for having me once again.
Right on. Catch you next time. Peace. All right, everybody. That was Fly in Formation with S, Mississauga-based MC. Very dope new album with Shark. Out now. It's called Reflections. You can find that over on Bandcamp. I believe it's a Bandcamp exclusive. I looked on streaming earlier today. It still hasn't hit streaming. I probably should have asked him about that and what the strategy is there, how long it's going to wait till it hits streaming. That was something that slipped my mind. Oh well, next time. But I had fun tonight. If you enjoy this type of content, make sure you hit follow here on Twitch, hit follow on YouTube. Say hi over on the social medias. You can find me on Instagram. It's at Doobyis, Doobyis, with an underscore after it. But even if you punch it in without the underscore, you'll see me. If you enjoy this type of stuff, keep coming by Tuesdays on twitch.tv/Doobyis. I do these interviews. I think I'm going to keep them up into November here. We'll see. I'm on the fence of whether this is the last one for the season or not, to tell you the truth. But I'm talking to a few other guys, and if we can line up dates, I might do a couple more in November. But these things will definitely start back up with another season in January. And the mix show that I do after the smoke is clear with my homie DJ Dice, we put out independent hip-hop mixes, hour worth of unedited hip-hop from across Canada every week. Never play anything twice, always new release. You can find those mixcloud.com/Doobyis. That's where the archives are. Get the Mixcloud app. It's free to listen, and you can, see the track lists over there. If you like reading about these types of things, I very often will do blog posts about each After the Smoke is Clear episode and post those at Doobyis.com. That's where you can find everything that I do. I appreciate you coming through. Keep coming back. Say hi and chat.